The great chamber was a tomb of quiet, its vastness broken only by the spectral hum of anti-gravity platforms suspending the galaxy's masters in their arrogant arc. 7 thrones for 7 sovereign species. Their alliance a 2-millennium-old stranglehold on the light of 10,000 suns. In the gulf of that silence, a single, trembling figure stood as a supplicant before gods. His name was Kelto, an archaeologist of the blue-skinned Lumin. Barely 200 cycles into a life about to be shattered by a truth too colossal to contain. The data tablet in his hands felt like a live star, heavy with cosmic heresy. "Honored Council," he began, his voice a fragile thread in the monumental space. "I have unearthed a lie buried in the void. Everything we know about our history is a prelude. Strong call to action. If this first line hooked you, imagine where this story is going. Don't miss a second of this epic revelation. Like, subscribe, and share this video to join the watch for what comes next. Comment below with your theory. Are the humans myth or menace? Supreme Commander Vexara, her acrylic form a statue of cold fury, carved from starfire and ambition, leaned forward. The lights bled across her armor-like skin. "We govern a galaxy, archaeologist. We do not excavate its graveyards. Speak your piece and be done with it." The dismissal was a lash, intended to flay his courage. Kelto felt its sting, but the image burned into his mind. The silent station, the impossible metal, the whispers from the dark, gave him a spine of steel. "I found evidence," he declared, the words dropping into the silence like stones into a still pool, "of the Terrans." The chamber erupted, not in shock, but in a cruel symphony of derision. Chirps of Pelthar amusement, grinding Kralic laughter, the cold, mechanical scoff from Fexen's translator. "The fairy tale warriors?" Fexen rasped. "The bedtime story for fledglings. Next you will tell us you found the childhood blanket of the universe." But Kelto stood his ground, the ghost of Admiral Elena Vasquez's final log entry giving him strength. "I found their station. At the screaming edge of the void, in the radioactive nowhere we were taught to fear. It is alive, sleeping but whole. And within it," he activated the tablet, a holographic blossom of alien script, elegant and severe, unfolded in the chamber's heart, alongside his laborious translation. The laughter died, strangled by the elegant, damning words. "To whoever finds this station, we are the Terran Federation. A plague took us. We do not know if it was natural or a weapon unleashed in secret. Billions fell. Our civilization, once a beacon, gutted out in months. We made a choice. To vanish, to retreat into the emptiness between spaces, to heal in isolation, lest our curse become yours. We are not gone. We are waiting. We are watching. And if the galaxy ever needs us again, we will return." The silence that followed was absolute, a physical weight. Vexara shattered it, rising to her full imposing height. "A fabrication," she declared, the word a verdict. "A phantom crafted by fringe world dissidents or rival coalitions to seed discord. The humans are a parable, archaeologist, a lesson in sacrifice for the young, nothing more." "Then explain the station." Kelto's plea was raw. "The alloys our forges cannot mimic, the energy signatures that defy our physics, the quantum shields that still flicker after 2,000 years. I explain it as the corpse of an obscure extinct race who perhaps called themselves human, Vexara dismissed, her tone frosting the very air. They are dust, and we have a living empire to tend. The mining operations in Sector 7 await. Your request for a void expedition is denied. The matter is closed. Defeat was a bitter vapor in Kelto's mouth. He was escorted out, the precious data clutched to his chest. The Council's attention already sliding away to matters of conquest and resource charts. But in the sterile corridors of power, a resolve crystallized within him, hard and sharp. They could bury his career, but they could not bury the truth. 3 cycles passed. Kelto's punishment was a slow, professional burial in the sub-level archives of the Sovereignty Museum, surrounded by the dusty relics of 100 conquered cultures. By day, he catalogued trifles. By night, in a pool of lamplight, he communed with ghosts. He pored over the Terran data cores, and a civilization of breathtaking depth and tragic nobility unfolded before him. He saw their blue-green cradle, Earth, a world of staggering beauty and furious storms. He learned of their art, symphonies that could mirror cosmic birth, literature that wrestled with the soul's very fabric. He traced their history, not a march of flawless saints, but a turbulent saga of war, discovery, folly, and redemption. They had possessed technology that seemed like magic, ships that danced between dimensions, weapons that could gentle a star's fury, shields that could make a fortress of a mote of dust. And yet at their zenith, faced with a silent, creeping apocalypse, they had chosen not to rage, not to lash out in desperate blame, but to perform the universe's most profound act of charity. Self-imposed exile. They valued life, all life, more than dominion. The contrast with the Sovereignty's civilizing crusades, worlds strip-mined to husks, cultures erased, species worked to extinction in deep core pits, was a moral chasm that hollowed him out. One such night, the museum's serenity was gutted by a shrieking alarm. Kelto scrambled to the main hall, where holographic news feeds blared universal panic. Vexara's face, a mask of forced calm, dominated every screen. Citizens, long-range sensors have detected a massive, unknown energy signature emerging from the void. Power readings are unprecedented. All military assets are recalled to defensive postures. The Sovereignty stands vigilant. The void, his void. Kelto's hearts hammered a war drum rhythm against his ribs. He fled back to his terminal, fingers flying as he cross-referenced the reported coordinates with the star charts from the Terran station. The overlay was perfect. The cosmic spike was erupting from a location the humans had marked with a simple, devastating label. Home Fleet Staging Ground, Alpha. It was happening. The Prolis in the dark was being kept. A wild, reckless certainty seized him. The Council would bunker down, would see this only as a threat to be met with volleys of plasma. They would provoke a power they could not comprehend. He had to warn the innocent, the ones who would be collateral in the coming storm. Breaching every protocol, he accessed the public comnet, sending a frantic, encrypted burst to every independent colony, every minor species on the fringe. The Terrans are returning. Do not provoke. Do not fire. If the legends are true, they value mercy above might. Show them the galaxy remembers peace. His final transmission coincided with the crash of the archive doors. Sovereignty security officers, their faces grim, surrounded him. Archaeologist Kelto, you are charged with sedition and inciting panic. As the restraints clicked cold around his wrists, he looked past them to a monitor, still displaying the sensor feed. The energy signature wasn't fading. It was blooming. A terrible and beautiful flower of impossible power, drifting closer to inhabited space with every passing second. In the sterile darkness of a detention cell, Kelto awaited his fate. He thought of Admiral Vasquez, her message cast across centuries like a fishing line. We are waiting. 2,000 years. What had they built in the silence? What had they seen while watching? He thought of Vexara's iron peace, built on graveyards. He thought of the Velnar, a peaceful, art-loving species he'd met once, who were next on the Sovereignty's integration list. A cold terror, deeper than any fear for his own life, settled in him. When humanity looked upon the galaxy, they had sacrificed everything to protect. What judgment would they find in their ancient, star-flecked eyes? Fleet Admiral Marcus Kane stood in the observation nexus of the Sentinel's eye, a citadel suspended not in space, but woven between the threads of reality itself, a Tocket dimension born of 2 millennia of human ingenuity and desperate need. Before him, displayed across a crystal viewport that was more a complex quantum interface than simple glass, the galaxy hung like a spilled diamond necklace against the velvet black. Its light was a memory, a ghost of a home they had forsaken to save others from a dying breath. His reflection in the pane showed a man carved from granite and sorrow. The 5 stars on his collar, not a decoration, but the weight of history itself. Admiral. The voice was Lieutenant Sarah Chen, young, sharp, born in the exile and knowing no other sky. The assembly is convened. Kane turned, his boots silent on the deck. The corridors of the eye hummed with a purposeful energy. The quiet chatter of officers and the thrum of systems that were generations beyond anything the galaxy outside could dream of. Through strategic viewports, he could see the other watch stations of the network, a constellation of silent guardians, connected by thought-quick quantum threads. This was the fruit of their long solitude. Not just survival, but an evolution, a civilization that had turned its grief into a forge, its isolation into a lens. The briefing chamber was a cathedral of light and data. Holograms shimmered into being, hundreds of them, representatives from the scattered colonies of humanity, from Mars to Epsilon Eridani Prime, from the Oort habitats to the biodomes of New Athena. 20 billion souls, thriving in the secret dark. At the chamber's head, President Amara Singh's image solidified. Her face, dignified and severe, held the weary wisdom of a shepherd who had guided her flock through a centuries-long night. Admiral Kane, she said, her voice echoing in the collective consciousness of the chamber. The floor is yours. Show us what your watchers have seen. Kane activated the master hologram. The galaxy map bloomed, then mutated. Crimson tendrils, the Sovereignty's expansion, spread like a bloodstain across the starfields, consuming the gentle blue and green markers of independent systems. 2,000 years ago, Kane's voice was low, a roll of distant thunder. We left to protect the galaxy from our sickness. We promised to return when we were healed. The data compels a singular question. Is the galaxy now sicker than we ever were? The display shifted. Not charts, but recordings. Captured transmissions, smuggled sensor logs. The haunting final broadcasts of dying worlds. Sovereignty dreadnoughts, angular and cruel, glassing continents from orbit. Slave convoys, herding entire species into the maws of asteroid mines. A once verdant world, labeled P77, shown in a time-lapse over a standard decade. Its forests vanished, its oceans drained, its core ripped out, leaving a cracked, radioactive husk. The Sovereignty controls 70% of known space, Kane continued, the numbers falling like headstones. 83 sentient species conquered. 42 of those are now extinct. Their methodology is efficient. Obliterate resistance, enslave the remainder, consume every resource, move on. They call it civilization. It is entropy given political form. A new image centered. A lush azure world, its landmasses swathed in emerald. Velnar Prime. This world is next. Population, 4 billion. The Velnar are a passive, artistic species. No standing army. No warp capability. Their greatest sin is possessing a planetary core rich in tritonic crystals. The hologram zoomed, showing the chillingly familiar, spectral signatures of a Sovereignty invasion fleet mustering in a neighboring system. 500 warships. A swarm of locusts darkening the stellar wind. Intel extrapolation predicts 75% casualties within the first standard year. The planet will be a dead rock in 5. The chamber erupted. Outrage, horror, but also the sharp, familiar scent of fear. Voices overlapped. Calls for immediate intervention. Vehement appeals for caution. Philosophical debates on the prime directive of a returned people. President Singh raised a hand. The din settled into a taut silence. Admiral, your recommendation. Kane absorbed the weight of every gaze, real and projected. This was the ledge, the point of no return. Madam President, Assembly members, we did not spend 2,000 years hiding merely to survive. We hid to become more, to learn, to outgrow our own destructive impulses. We told ourselves we were waiting for the right moment. He gestured to the image of Velnar Prime, so vibrantly, innocently alive. This is not a moment. It is a last stand for decency in this galaxy. We have watched evil metastasize, documenting its crimes in perfect, sterile detail, while telling ourselves we were not ready. I submit that our inaction has become a silent endorsement. Councillor David Okonkwo of Mars, his hologram flickering with the strength of his emotion, spoke. You propose revealing ourselves with an act of war, Admiral. You would have us shatter 2 millennia of secrecy, potentially igniting a conflict that could ravage the very beings we seek to save. This is not about starting a war, Councillor, Kane replied, his eyes burning with a cold fire. It is about preventing a genocide. We possess the capability to stop this without a single Velnar death, likely without a single Sovereignty death. Our quantum displacement shields make their weapons irrelevant. Our precision interdiction fields can disable fleets, not destroy them. We have 10,000 Odyssey-class dreadnoughts in the home fleet alone, each a match for 100 of theirs. But this isn't about a demonstration of power. He paused, the words hanging. It is about a demonstration of character. The galaxy has forgotten mercy. We must remind them. The debate raged for hours, a tempest of ethics, trauma, and terrible responsibility. They argued over the sins of their own past, over the right to judge, over the terrifying burden of playing God. Finally, Singh called the vote. The question glowed in the air. Deploy home fleet to Velnar Prime. Yes, no. Kane watched the tally flow in real time. A cascade of light. It was agonizingly close. A reflection of the schism in the human soul itself. The fear of the past against the hope for a future. When the final number settled, a mere 6% margin, a collective breath was drawn. The mandate was given. President Singh stood, her image projecting absolute authority. Admiral Marcus Kane, you are hereby authorized to execute Operation Homecoming. Defend Velnar Prime. Announce our return. Your rules of engagement are to preserve life. All life, above all else. We do not return as conquerors. We return as shepherds. Do not fail. Understood, Madam President. Across the hidden reaches of the void, in gravitic anchorages cloaked from reality itself, the human home fleet awakened. 10,000 Odyssey-class dreadnoughts, 3 kilometers of sleek, shadowed alloy and pulsating quantum energy powered their drives. These were not mere warships. They were arcs of potential, carrying hospitals, nanoforges, ecological revival seeds. On the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, Kane gave the order. All vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Kane. Engage quantum translation on my mark. Destination, Velnar Prime. Mission, to prove that hope is not a myth. Mark, space around the fleet did not bend. It unfolded. Reality itself pleated as 10,000 ships slipped through the scenes of dimensions the sovereignty could not measure, crossing light years in the space between heartbeats. On Velnar Prime, the end was a shadow falling across the sun. Elder Shera stood in the grand silhouette, the central chamber of her people's governance, its open arches looking out on trembling forests. The air, usually sweet with pollen and song, was thick with dread. The metal birds fill our sky, whispered Elder Kor, his fur matted with fear sweat. They darken the face of Luma, our sun. The prophecies. The void monsters. Shara watched the holographic scry, showing the angular predatory shapes of 500 sovereignty vessels taking position in high orbit. A single blanket transmission washed over all frequencies, icy and absolute. Velnar Prime. Surrender. Prepare for integration. Resistance is annihilation. What is integration? Young Elder Vess asked, her large eyes wide with a terror she couldn't fully comprehend. Shera closed her eyes, seeing the reports from smuggled data slugs, the testimonies of broken refugees. It means the end of us. The strong take. The weak are taken. Our world will be consumed. Our people will become fuel for their machine. A hidden portal hissed open. A figure, streaked with grime and exhaustion, stumbled into the chamber. It was Kelto, the disgraced archaeologist. Elder Shera, you must evacuate the cities, now. The bombardment will begin within the hour. They target population centers first, to break will. Kelto, how did you... No time, please, into the deep forests, the mountain caves. It will not save all, but it will save some. Shera made the hardest choice of her life. She gave the order. Across the continents, gentle alarm chimes, never before used for war, sang out. The Velnar, confused and weeping, streamed from their crystalline cities, a rainbow flood of flight into the embracing green. High above, on the command deck of the Sovereignty flagship, Iron Resolve. Vexara watched the exodus with cold satisfaction. Primitive. Chaotic. See how they scatter? Order is a mercy we bring. Commander, her tactical officer intoned. Fleet is locked. Primary targets illuminated. Awaiting final execute command. Vexara was about to give the word that would ignite the atmosphere and etch another victory onto her legacy. Then her science officer screamed. Spatial rupture, bearing 009er. Scale impossible. The fabric of space above Velnar Prime tore. It was not a wormhole. It was a wound. A brilliant, gushing cataract of raw quantum energy. And from that glorious, terrifying maw, they came. One ship, then 10, 100, 1,000. They kept coming, an endless procession of leviathans. Their forms sleek and dark, their silhouettes radiating a quiet, terrifying power. They did not move. They manifest, claiming their space as an incontestable fact. The Sovereignty fleet, moments ago an apex predator, was suddenly a flock of minnows beside a school of cosmic whales. 10,000 vessels, the tactical officer stammered, his voice hollow with disbelief. On the planet, the fleeing Velnar halted, staring upward at the new constellation that had blotted out their sun. Shera stood beside Kelto, her breath frozen. What are they? She breathed. Tears carved clean paths through the dust on Kelto's face. A lifetime of ridicule, of imprisonment, of clinging to a mad truth, crystallized into this sublime, terrifying moment. The answer, he whispered, the word a prayer and a prophecy. Humanity has come home. On the Iron Resolve, Vexara's mind recoiled. The legends, the archaeologists babbling, the mythical guardians. They were metal and energy and overwhelming, incontrovertible fact. A hail flashed on her screen. She opened it, and for the first time, a living human stared back at her. Marcus Kane's face was calm, his eyes the grey of a glacier, holding eons of patience. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Federation. You are poised to slaughter a defenseless species. Stand down, now. Vexara's pride, a fortress built over 3 centuries of conquest, rallied. This is Supreme Commander Vexara. You trespass in sovereignty space. Withdraw or be crushed. The only crushing here will be of your ambition, Kane said, his tone chillingly conversational. You have 3 minutes to power down weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. Fail, and we will remove you. The channel cut. Vexara's blood ran hot with fury and cold with terror. To yield was unthinkable. It would unravel the myth of sovereignty invincibility across the galaxy. She made her choice. All vessels, target the lead human ship. Maximum fire. Annihilate it. 500 sovereignty warships vomited their collective fury. A storm of plasma lances, relativistic railshot, and matter annihilation beams converged on the Indomitable. A hellish light show designed to vaporize a continent. The light died. The Indomitable hung, pristine, in the silent dark. Around it, a shimmering quantum field rippled gently, like water disturbed by a single insignificant raindrop, then smoothed to perfect stillness. On the human bridge, Lieutenant Chen glanced at a readout. Shields at 98%. Energy dispersal nominal. Kane sighed, a small sound of profound disappointment. Authorization Kane Alpha 7. Precision field projection only. Disable primary weapon systems and propulsion. Leave life support and comms intact. Execute. The human fleet did not fire in any conventional sense. Space around the 500 sovereignty ships fluctuated. A silent, invisible wave passed through them. Across the fleet, consoles died. Engine cores went dormant. Weapons arrays powered down, not with explosions, but with the quiet finality of a switched-off light. In 3 seconds, the mighty invasion force was transformed into 500 inert, drifting tombs, utterly harmless. Vexara stared at her dead command console, the hum of her ship replaced by a deafening silence. They hadn't just been defeated, they had been neutered. The technological gulf was not a gap, it was an abyss, and humanity stood on the other side, looking down at their toys. Then a new transmission. Kane's face, devoid of gloating, filled her screen. Your crews will not be harmed. Rescue and medical shuttles are en route to provide assistance. This was not a conquest, Supreme Commander. It was a lesson. The lesson is, mercy is stronger than fear. Remember it. As Vexara sat in the ruins of her certainty, human vessels, marked with medical sigils, began docking with her dead fleet, offering aid to the very warriors who had moments before tried to kill them. The shame was a more profound defeat than any military rout. Below, on Velnar Prime, a sound began, a soft, hesitant tone, then another. It grew, swelling into a mighty, harmonious chorus of relief and joy. The Velnar singing their salvation to the sky. Shera turned to Kelto, tears in her own eyes now. You believed, she said. They promised, he replied. A single human shuttle, sleek and quiet, descended from the armada of gods, landing gently on the mossy ground before the grand silhouette. The hatch opened. Admiral Marcus Kane stepped out, not as a conqueror, but as a visitor. He looked at the singing Velnar, at the weeping elders, at Kelto standing tall amidst them all. The galaxy had turned, and in that turning, the long silent watch was over. The Guardians had stepped from the shadows. And now the real work would begin. The silence in the Indomitable's observation lounge was profound. A living thing suspended between stars and consequences. Admiral Kane stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the ballet of rescue shuttles flitting between the paralyzed sovereignty fleet. Each small, bright light was an act of deliberate, breathtaking philosophy. We do not destroy, we heal. Kelto stood beside him, the young archaeologist's blue skin still flushed with the adrenaline of vindication and awe. Elder Shera was there too, her large, liquid eyes holding a galaxy of gratitude and unasked questions. You spared them, Kelto finally said, his voice hushed. After what they were about to do, you're helping them. Mercy is not a reward for good behavior, Kane replied, his gaze fixed on the viewport. It is the foundation of civilization. They came with bombs. We respond with bandages. Let the contrast teach what words cannot. Shera stirred. And what lesson will it teach the rest of the sovereignty? That your strength makes you gentle? Or that your gentleness is a weakness to be exploited? Kane turned, a faint, grim smile touching his lips. A question as old as humanity itself, Elder. We are about to find out. The request for a parley came not from the Sovereign Council, but from Vexara herself. Beaten, humiliated, but with a shred of dignity clinging to her. She arrived aboard the Indomitable. The conference room was spare, elegant, dominated by the vista of Velnar Prime, whole and untouched, turning serenely below. Vexara entered, her acrylic form rigid, the ghost of her former arrogance, a brittle shell. Supreme Commander, Kane gestured to a seat. You are not a prisoner. Your crews are receiving medical attention. Your ships will be restored to basic functionality. You may leave when you wish. Vexara remained standing, her ocular sensors fixed on him. This is a trick, a psychological gambit. You display overwhelming force, then perform this charity. You wish to confuse us to soften our resolve. There is no trick, Kane said, his tone flat, factual. Only choice. Your fleet's resolve was broken the moment our shields held. What you see now is not tactics. It is character. He activated a holomap. It showed the sovereignty's red tide of conquest. Your empire was built on a noble idea, order from chaos. But you corrupted it. Order without justice is tyranny. Stability without freedom is slavery. You have not been civilizing the galaxy, Commander. You have been consuming it. Vexara's gaze flickered over the map, over the designations of extinct species, the hollowed-out worlds. Justifications she had recited for centuries. Necessary integration, resource management, the greater good, tasted like ash in her mind. What is your alternative? A galaxy of squabbling, primitive tribes? We brought peace. You brought a cemetery's peace, Kelto interjected, unable to stay silent. I have catalogued the relics of the species you brought peace to. I have held the art they made, read their last words. You didn't elevate them. You erased them. We offer a partnership, Kane said, overriding Vexara's retort. A galactic compact. Membership is voluntary. Disputes are resolved by council, not canon. The strong have a duty to protect the weak, not prey upon them. Humanity will serve as peacekeepers, not rulers. Our technology for medicine, sustainable energy, quantum communication, it will be shared. Vexara stared, her logic circuits struggling to pass the proposal. It had no leverage, no hidden clause for tribute, no subjugation. It was anathema to everything the sovereignty stood for. And if we refuse? Kane's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Then humanity will oppose you. Not to conquer, but to contain. We will defend every Velnar Prime. We will shield every species you target. We have the patience of 2,000 silent years, Commander. We can do this for 10,000 more. Your empire will fossilize, trapped behind a wall of its own aggression. The choice is not between victory and defeat. It is between evolution and extinction. He leaned forward, his grey eyes pinning her. Go back to your council. Tell them the legends are real. Tell them we have returned. And tell them the galaxy now has a conscience. See if they have the wisdom to listen. 6 standard months later, the Galactic Summit was convened on Concord Station, a neutral marvel of engineering built jointly by human and Velnar crews at the crossroads of known space. It was a ringed paradise of suspended gardens and translucent spires, a physical manifestation of the new paradigm. Kelto, now Ambassador Kelto, human Velnar liaison, watched from a viewport as shuttles from 100 species flitted like curious insects to the docking arms. He wore robes of office, a far cry from his archaeologists' dust-covered tunics. The weight was different, but no less profound. "Nervous?" President Amara Singh asked, joining him. She was a study in calm authority, but Kelto had learned to see the fierce, protective fire in her dark eyes. "They are still afraid," Kelto said, nodding toward a Kralik battleship, holding a wary, distant position. "Fear makes them dangerous. Fear is the soil in which either tyranny or trust can grow," Singh replied. "Our job is to cultivate the latter." The Grand Convocation Hall was a symphony of biodiversity. Atmospheric scrubbers hummed, catering to methane breathers, oxygen lovers, and silicon-based life forms alike. The human delegation entered not with a martial procession, but with quiet purpose. The room fell silent. Every sensor, eye, and olfactory stalk focused on them. Here stood the myth, made flesh and policy. Singh took the podium. "Delegates, we meet not under threat, but under promise. The promise that the future need not repeat the past." She presented the evidence of Velnar Prime, not as a victory, but as a case study in restraint. She showed the data streams of human aid already flowing. Plague suppression on Corvan, famine relief on Zen 4, quantum core stabilizers for the failing star of the Helix Nebula colonies. Then she did the unexpected. She showed them the evidence Kelto and Dr. Kowalski had painstakingly verified. The genetic decay rate analysis of the Terran plague. The point of origin triangulation. The architectural signatures of the hidden bioweapon labs that matched early sovereignty precursor designs. 2,000 years ago, Singh's voice was clear, cold, and carried no accusation, only devastating fact. The species who would found your sovereignty saw a rival rising. A rival called humanity. Instead of trade, or challenge, or dialogue, they chose extermination. They engineered a horror and unleashed it upon our innocent billions. We did not fade because we were weak. We withdrew because we were moral. We chose the void to protect you from our death. The shock in the hall was seismic. Representatives of the Pelthar, who prided themselves on intellectual rigor, scoured the data feeds, their findings confirming the truth. The Kralik delegation shifted uneasily. Vexara, present as a special observer, looked physically ill. "We possess, by any measure of galactic law, the right of retribution," Singh continued, letting the horrific truth hang. "We choose instead the responsibility of reconciliation. This is not weakness. This is a strength our would-be destroyers could never comprehend. We offer the compact, not because we owe you anything, but because it is the right thing to do. Will you build a future with us, or cling to the bloody past?" The debate was furious, fragmented, cathartic. Old grievances surfaced. The enslaved demanded voices. The conquerors squirmed. Vexara, to the shock of many, rose and gave a testimony stripped of pride. She described the helplessness before human technology, the shame of being offered aid after defeat. "They have the power to erase us," she stated flatly. "They choose to teach us. Only a fool ignores such a lesson." When the final votes were tallied, the preliminary galactic compact was ratified by a majority of 200 species. A governing council was formed. Human fleets were designated as rapid response peacekeepers. The three hardest-line sovereignty species, the Kralik, the Vorai, and the Gornax, refused to sign, issuing blistering denunciations and withdrawing. The first test came within a month. the Krallic sovereignty, interpreting humanity's mercy as strategic blindness, massed a war fleet of 2,000 vessels and invaded a neutral system bordering human-protected space, aiming to capture its quantum lithium mines. Admiral Kane's response was not a negotiation. It was a lesson in scale. As the Krallic armada approached the mining colony, space ahead of them dissolved. Not 10,000, but 50,000 human dreadnoughts translated into existence. Their formation so vast, it created a gravitational lens, distorting the light of the system's star. Kane's hail was brief. Krallic fleet, you are in violation of the compact you scorn. You have two choices: surrender for trial, or be disarmed. Choose. The Krallic commander, enraged and overconfident, chose to fight. He ordered a full alpha strike, hoping to crack the human line. The human fleet did not bother with shields. They activated targeted quantum displacement fields. Every Krallic weapon system, engine, and power relay within the 2,000 ships simultaneously ceased to function. It was as if a universal off switch had been flipped. One moment, a mighty invasion force. The next, a cloud of inert metal. Then human tugs emerged, gently corralling the helpless vessels, towing them not to scrapyards, but to holding orbits, where their crews were processed for trial under new galactic law. The message was unequivocal. The compact protects. Its justice is absolute. Its patience is not infinite. The Vorai Dominion, the last holdout, tried a different, desperate gambit. They would not attack a frontier. They would strike at the heart, gathering every warship they possessed. 5,000 strong, they plotted a daring, long-range jump, aiming their entire might at the Sol system, at Earth itself. It was a symbol strike, intended to shatter the myth by destroying its cradle. The Vorai fleet emerged from warp at the heliopause of humanity's home system. And there, their grand gesture died in a silent whimper. Sol was not a system. It was a fortress, a tapestry, a living engine of such staggering, incomprehensible scale that Vorai sensors overloaded and shut down. 200,000 capital ships patrolled layered defense perimeters. 500 mobile shipyards, each the size of a small moon, constructed vessels in real time. Planetary shields shimmered around Earth, Mars, Venus, even Mercury. Dyson swarm collectors danced around the sun. This was not a home they had returned to defend. This was the beating, industrial heart of a civilization that had turned exile into a millennia-long construction project. The void had not been empty. It had been a workshop. The Vorai commander did not give an order to attack. He simply opened a channel, his voice hollow with surrendered awe. Fleet Admiral Kane, we wish to discuss the terms of the compact. 10 years, the Galactic Compact was not a utopia. Disputes flared over trade routes. Cultural misunderstandings sparked tensions. Old hatreds simmered, but no worlds were burned. No species were erased. Human peacekeeper fleets, their dreadnoughts, now familiar and reassuring symbols, patrolled the space lanes. Their presence did not suppress conflict. They elevated the means to resolve it. The great engine of human technology sharing began to lift all civilizations. Plagues were cured. Barren worlds were terraformed. A galactic information network, the noosphere, connected minds across light years, fostering a burgeoning, shared culture. On a hill overlooking New Citadel, the primary Velnar city that had risen from the fear of that fateful day, a monument stood. It was simple, an obelisk of fused stellar glass, reflecting the sky. Inscribed in the root language of every compact species were the words, "Here we chose to be better." Retired Admiral Marcus Kane, his hair fully white now, his posture still that of a man who commanded fleets, stood before it. A young Velnar child, her fur the color of dawn, approached, led by her mother. "You are the human admiral?" the child chirped, her large eyes bright with curiosity. "From the story time." "I am," Kane said, kneeling to her level. "Were humans always the heroes?" Kane thought of Earth's bloody history, of wars fought over dirt and ideology, of the fear and pride that had led them to the stars, of the plague and the despair and the long, dark exile. He thought of the choice in the briefing room, the vote that had changed everything. "No, little one," he said, his voice soft. "We had to choose to be, every day." "And so can you." The child smiled, satisfied, and ran off to play under Velnar Prime's golden sun. Kelto, older now, leaning on a cane carved from a branch of the first tree replanted after the invasion scare, hobbled up beside him. "She sees the monument," Kelto said, following the child's path. "But she doesn't see the graveyards it's built upon, the ones we found and the ones we prevented." "That's the point," Kane replied, gazing at the thriving, polyglot city below. Humans, Velnar, Pelfar, even a few reformed Krallic diplomats, walked together. Monuments shouldn't commemorate tragedy. They should commemorate the decision to end it. "Do you think it will last?" Kelto asked, the eternal question of the historian who has seen empires rise and fall. Kane looked up, past the atmosphere, to where the faint, steady lights of compact patrol ships winked against the deepening twilight. "Nothing lasts forever, Kelto. Not peace, not empires, not even stars. But we've replaced a cycle of conquest with a framework for repair. We've given them the tools and shown them a better way to use their hands. The rest is up to them." He turned to his old friend. "You found a message in a dead station, and you shouted it into a galaxy that called you a fool. You didn't just bring us back, you gave us a reason. Thank you." Kelto bowed his head, the gratitude too large for words. As true night fell, the city lights blossomed like a field of earthbound stars. From a park, the sound of mixed species laughter drifted up. In a lab, a human and a Peltha scientist peered at a quantum matrix, on the verge of a breakthrough. In a hall, elders from a dozen worlds mediated a resource dispute. It was not perfect. It was alive. It was fragile and precious, and worth every second of the long watch. Admiral Marcus Kane, last of the Exodus generation, took a final look at the monument, at the city, at the stars now threaded with the light of cooperation. The promise made in desperation 2,000 years ago had been kept. The Guardians had returned. And now, quietly, steadily, they were working to make themselves obsolete. That was the final and greatest victory. The galaxy had needed humanity, and now, perhaps, it was learning to become a little more human itself.